Thank you. My name is Mr. Amory Hanson, and I am a historic choice, number 60 on the ballot for Huntington Beach City Council. I want to talk today because we're at Lakeview Park, not really a historic name to talk about, so I want to talk about an issue that's very passionate to me, very near and dear to my heart, which is the Huntington Beach mobile home residents and their recent quest. Now, the Huntington Beach mobile home residents, as you may have seen if you've watched recent Huntington Beach City Council meeting, they've been advocating to have a referendum on the charter, to revise the charter, to have a carve-out on the rent control ban for mobile home residents. Now, I'm on the Huntington Beach Historic Resources Board, and I want to give a little background on this, because there is some background a lot of people don't know about. Now, as mayor back in 2002, when Mayor Cook was mayor, she and the council at the time proposed a ordinance that proposed a referendum, that would ban rent control, and that was ban the city council from considering a rent control ordinance. That passed back in 2002, a long time ago. Now, you fast forward to 2014, and there was some concern by mobile home residents that maybe it was time to have some rent control, not necessarily for everyone, but specifically for them. And a little bit of background as to the reasons I'll get to in a minute. But at the time, the council put it on, and then Mayor Hardy, who's my fellow candidate for city council, and Mayor Katapodis, although they were both councilmen at the time, not mayors, they switched their vote based on some information given to them by developers that they were going to try and fix it. Well, that didn't happen. I've spoken with Mr. Timothy Geddes, the chairman of the Huntington Beach Mobile Home Advisory Board. He's a longtime advocate for mobile home residents, and he said none of those things happened. Now, you fast forward to now that battle was kind of dropped after that happened. And what changed was the Great Pandemic, in a sense. During the Great Pandemic, there was an eviction moratorium and a rent raise moratorium that was considered an emergency measure. It was eventually lifted, in my opinion, maybe a little too late, but that's a different debate. Now, the mobile home residents then received very astronomical rent increases. I've spoken to one resident who says that her rent is $3,000. Now, $3,000 is the price of an apartment at the residences in Pacific City. That's the rent there. $3,000 also happens to be a lot more than the average owner's property tax who's paid off their mortgage. So, prior to, even to a certain extent today, but definitely prior to the 2000s. So you have a situation where, given these astronomical rent control increases, and they've done studies to show they were well past the CPI, which is the cost of CPA, which is the cost of living adjustment, and that's changed. And then at the end, in 2021, you fast forward to 2022, you get another rent increase at the beginning of the year. Now, the residents since then have been advocating for what they were originally advocating, which was a rent control carve-out. And I want to express appreciation to those residents for making that, doing the advocacy, taking the time to be out there. They want to revise the city charter, Section 803, to allow a referendum on this issue. And they want to allow a carve-out for mobile home residents on the rent control ban. That requires a referendum. The reason it requires a referendum is that since the charter was amended to totally ban, in order to even discuss the issue, the city council is going to have to revise the charter. And just as the city council can't revise the city charter themselves and get an elected city attorney, something I don't support, by the way, get an appointed city attorney, something I don't support, by the way. Excuse me, I do support an elected city attorney, which is what we currently have, and I want to make that very clear. But the city council cannot revise the charter in that way. They cannot make the city attorney appointed without a vote of the citizens. Similarly, there's a lot of other issues. The rent control is similar. In a sense, they cannot discuss an ordinance even. Now, the Charter Review Commission considered, among other recommendations, this issue. They felt that the Mobile Home Advisory Board was better equipped, so they referred it to them. And there it was. Now, the Mobile Home Advisory Board had a meeting on this. They discussed the pros and cons in a very heated but civil discussion between at-large residents of Huntington Beach at large, a few mobile home residents, as well as mobile home owners. And I remember that the vote was 5-4. Now, Professor Silkinson, the chairman, who was the chairman of the Huntington Beach Mobile Home Advisory Board, and that was my fellow candidate in 2020, he's also a supporter of mine now. But he was the chairman at the time and advocated, as have others, to make sure that that recommendation was considered by the city council. The city council, may not like the recommendation. They may not like the idea of a referendum, but I feel and others feel that they should consider it. They should have a vote on it because that recommendation was made. I think I would say that even if I were not in support of the rent stabilization ordinance. That side that supports the rent stabilization ordinance had the votes. They got the recommendation passed. Let's consider it at council. Now, the city council had until August 19th to make a charter amendment. The August 2nd meeting was the last regular meeting they could do, as they canceled the August 17th meeting. August 17th meeting. Well, here we are. 3 days, here we are, and they have not considered that recommendation, despite considering a lot of recommendations that many people did not support, like the appointed city attorney, clerk, and treasurer, which I do not support, or my personal favorite, which I find ridiculous, the vice mayor position. Now, what that means is currently we have a Huntington Beach mayor pro tempore. They want to change it, so instead of a mayor pro tempore, we have a vice mayor, a largely subtle and not significant difference. The mayor pro tempore, in any event, has been elected to preside at the city council in the absence of the mayor, which the vice mayor would do as mayor pro tempore. In fact, that would be their title when presiding in the absence of the mayor. Now, that is one of the more ridiculous ones, and I'm so glad we have other ones, because that one on its own is not worth the money, quite frankly, of a ballot referendum. What is worth the money of a ballot referendum, in my opinion, is this carve-out from rent control for mobile home residents. Now, I want to talk a little about the reasons why, but the main reason for me that we need to at least consider it, if I'm elected, is the fact that the Huntington Beach Mobile Home Advisory Board approved such a recommendation. Now, the Huntington Beach, some of the other reasons are that like I said, the residents have had disproportionate rent increases. Again, not at all based on the cost of living adjustment for inflation. They've been astronomical, and that's not fair to them. Many of them are seniors. Many of them are low-income residents. The other big issue is that they own land, and so they have to pay tax on that as well. So there's a lot of issues that justify. In any event, I truly believe that this needs to at least be considered by the city council. So I am committing. If I am elected, I will propose a councilman's item to consider a referendum to the city charter, to revise the city charter, to have a carve-out of the rent control prohibition for mobile home residents. Now, again, I want to emphasize two things. This does not mean that anyone else besides those mobile home residents, that the city council can even consider giving them rent control. It will be very limited to the mobile home residents. The second thing is that the city council would not then necessarily be required to consider a mobile home rent control ordinance or rent stabilization ordinance, which means they would not be required to consider that. As a matter of fact, perhaps the developers might consider ways of reducing the rent that do work as a result of the looming charter amendment. In any event, I believe that the city council needs to consider this. And I hope the mobile home residents who are here, who are watching, who are listening, will hear that. Because this is something that distinguishes me not only from my fellow candidates, the Save Surf, Save Free, also the +1, that's the free are Mr. Burns, Mr. McKeon, and Mrs. Vandermark, as well as the +1, Senator Strickland. But it also distinguishes me from, I think, every other candidate. I'm the one who's gone the farthest on this issue. I'm the one who said, we're going to at least talk about this city council. Maybe the city council doesn't want to vote for it, but we're going to hear it. You're going to be talking about it, council, believe me. And that is the issue. We must consider. We must have a healthy debate in this city. We are having that now with this election. We're going to have it at city council meetings to come if we just listen to the residents, whether they're the mobile home residents or all the residents on the beach. We must listen. So I hope that particularly the mobile home residents will consider what I've had to say on this issue. Again, I am committing, if I am elected, I will propose a charter, a councilman's item, to propose a referendum to revise the city charter to allow a rent control, a carve out of the prohibition on rent control for mobile home residents. I want to thank everyone for coming, and please consider voting, especially mobile home residents, please consider voting for Mr. Amory Hanson, a historic choice for Huntington Beach. Number 16 on the ballot for Huntington Beach City Council. Thank you.